In September 2023, Novo Nordisk surpassed LVMH as Europe's largest corporation. The luxury conglomerate Louis Vuitton is very familiar to us. But what kind of company is Novo Nordisk? Novo Nordisk is a 100-year-old global healthcare company headquartered in Denmark, with over 59,000 employees around the world. Today, it's most well known for making a little something called
Ozempic.
Ozempic.
Ozempic. It has a catchy song, and it's a drug that's been hugely popular for its significant weight loss effects. And at the start of this giant corporation was this couple. August Crowe won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 1920 for his work with capillaries and their role in regulating blood flow during exercise. His wife Marie, who was a physician and a scientist in her own right, was diagnosed with diabetes. At that time, having diabetes was basically a death sentence. For type 1 diabetics, life expectancy was generally less than a year from diagnosis. Type 2 diabetes was more manageable, but was often still deadly. A common treatment at the time was to severely restrict calorie intake by adopting a so-called starvation diet. For some people, this meant that they could only consume 400 calories a day, which made it very difficult for patients to stick to. And for those that did, some actually starved to death. So after hearing about the discovery of insulin in 1921 at the University of Toronto, August traveled to Canada to seek permission to produce this life-saving drug in Denmark. After returning from his trip, Marie convinced the scientist Hans Christian Herredorn to join her husband and August Kongstad, the owner of a pharmaceutical company who would finance their research. Herredorn and Crowe fervently experimented with insulin extraction and purification techniques, and in March 1923, they succeeded in treating the first patients with their insulin. Today, Novo Nordisk is the second largest pharmaceutical company in the world by market cap, surpassing well-known giants such as Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and Pfizer. The company's market value is over $410 billion, which is more than Denmark's entire GDP in 2022. Novo's impact on the Danish economy is so significant that economists have argued the country needs to publish another set of statistics that removes the company. To put it into perspective, in the first quarter of this year, the Danish economy grew 1.9%, and of that, 1.7% was contributed by the pharmaceutical industry. And among Danish pharma companies, Novo Nordisk is the largest by a long shot, with its revenue being about 10 times that of the next biggest company, Lundbeck. Almost all of Denmark's recent economic growth is explained by Novo's success, and its immense overseas sales has even influenced the Danish central bank's monetary policy. Danske Bank reported that there is a direct link between the growing pharmaceutical industry and a strengthening krona. As the Danish central bank's mandate is to peg the krona to the euro, it has kept its interest rates lower than the European Central Bank in the last year, in an effort to intentionally weaken its currency. Some economists have drawn parallels with Finland's Nokia and have expressed concerns about a country becoming too dependent on one large corporation. But Novo Nordisk's rise to supremacy has happened rather recently in its 100-year history. True to its origin, Novo was best known for diabetic treatment, producing almost 50% of the world's insulin. But everything changed when the US FDA approved Ozempic as a treatment for diabetes in 2017. The active ingredient in Ozempic is semaglutide, which is to be injected weekly by diabetic patients. But there's an interesting side effect. Semaglutide suppresses your appetite by tricking your body into thinking that it's full, even if you don't eat very much. So similar to Viagra, which was originally developed to treat cardiovascular problems but found its true calling elsewhere, Ozempic came to be used for a different purpose than it was developed for. And in 2021, the FDA approved another Novo Nordisk drug, Wegovy. Wegovy is similar to Ozempic but was produced specifically to treat obesity, and it was the first weight loss drug to win FDA approval in 8 years. Early trials of Ozempic and Wegovy showed patients losing up to 15% of their body weight, which was a figure that researchers had long thought was impossible to achieve. And the Ozempic-Wegovy duo became viral as celebrities and social media influencers caught on to its weight loss capabilities. During this year's Academy Awards, Jimmy Kimmel made this joke which hinted at the prevalence of the drug in Hollywood.
He looks so great. When I look around this room, I can't help but wonder, is Ozempic right for me?
Elon made these tweets saying that combining fasting with Wegovy and Ozempic was the key to his weight loss. And #Ozempic has received 1.3 billion views on TikTok. Even John Furner, Walmart's CEO, has said that they are seeing a slight pullback in food sales for people who are taking these weight loss drugs. At around $1,000 for a month's supply, these drugs are not cheap. So far, most insurance companies don't cover Wegovy or the off-label use of Ozempic for weight loss, but there is still massive demand for them, and Novo Nordisk can't produce these drugs fast enough. There's chronic shortages of Ozempic and Wegovy all over the world, but the issue is especially apparent in the US. Karsten Munk-Knudsen, the CFO of Novo Nordisk, said that, in the US, the uptake surpassed anything we've ever seen before, not just by a few percent, but by several fold. And while Novo is investing $3.6 billion into ramping up their production capacity, shortages of Wegovy led to doctors prescribing Ozempic as an alternative, which made it even harder for diabetics who needed the drug for its true purpose. With its high price tag and undersupply, some have turned towards using off-brand versions of Ozempic and Wegovy, which has even led the FDA to issue a warning earlier this year. But thanks to Ozempic and Wegovy's popularity, Novo Nordisk is enjoying record profits. In the first half of this year, its profits surged by 45% to $5.7 billion. And just this May, the company announced that it had developed oral semaglutide tablets, which were proving in trials to be just as effective as their injectable counterparts. This would make the drug even more approachable for people who have an aversion to needles. So is Ozempic the silver bullet to weight loss that we've all been waiting for? Well, there's still a lot of unknowns. We don't know if they're safe for long-term use and what kind of effects they may have on your metabolic system. And typically, users regain weight if they stop using Ozempic or Wegovy. This means that you have to keep using these drugs if you want to maintain your weight loss. And earlier this month, researchers from the University of British Columbia reported that drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy are associated with an increased risk of serious medical conditions, including stomach paralysis, pancreatitis, and bowel obstruction. Obesity is increasingly becoming a bigger issue around the world, and whereas before there was a tendency to view obesity as a result of self-inflicted, unhealthy lifestyle choices, now it's starting to be seen as a treatable illness. The WHO estimates that more than 1 billion people worldwide are obese. And in the US, the CDC reported that about 42% of adults and 20% of children were obese. Analysts say the weight loss industry could be a goldmine as drug companies start selling new treatments to millions of people. And while Ozempic may have been the first to gain mainstream notoriety, its competitors are following hot on its heels. Pfizer is now seeking FDA approval of a weight loss tablet called Danulipron, which it claims can result in up to 10 pounds of weight loss over 16 weeks. And in the first quarter of 2023, Eli Lilly sold about $568 million worth of Mounjaro, an injectable drug similar to Ozempic, which was approved by the FDA in 2022 for diabetic treatment. The FDA is expected to approve Mounjaro for weight loss later this year. Incredibly, an oral version of Mounjaro was shown in tests to reduce body weight by more than 25%, beating Ozempic and Wegovy by a wide margin. So it seems like a new age of weight loss drugs have opened, and I'm curious to know, what do you think about these drugs? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.